What's going on, guys? Pete Nova here with Player Profiler. Week 6 is in the books. We're turning the page to week number 7. But as always, I am here on a Monday night ahead of Monday Night Football, and we're going to talk and break down everything that went on this past week to help you get ready for week 7 and maybe help you get ready for the weeks that are going to continue after that, right? Because we're going to look at guys to sell. We're going to look at guys to buy. We're going to look at schedules ahead and what we're buying and what we're selling, which inevitably is buying and selling, right? Which guys are buying, selling. You get it. You get the drift. But anyway, appreciate you guys being here tonight, spending your time with me. We do have Monday Night Football, but it is just a few hours away, so don't worry. You're not going to miss anything by hanging out here with me tonight. And if you did, I do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe as always. We got a really fun show planned for you guys tonight. So I do appreciate everybody that has stopped by. And I mean, man, there is a lot that's gone on this week. Let's start off with one of the more impactful news and kind of the fallout from that news. And that is Puka Nacua and the injury fallout with him. Puka Nacua leaves the game early against the Baltimore Ravens, goes up for a touchdown catch, can't haul it in, and then, kind of wincing in pain on the ground, gets up, right? Then falls back on the ground, holds his chest, then it's his ankle, right? It was really hard to tell what it was. They didn't even, not to my knowledge, but I didn't see him have a chest injury, but he was holding his chest. But we do know at least that it is a foot injury. It seems very likely that he's not going to play this week. Could lead to maybe more games missed in the future. And, we've talked about it, but Davante Adams, if there is a chance that Puka misses extended time, Davante Adams, to me, becomes a top 5 guy in those games that Puka is absent, right? We've seen Adams be, just an absolute target hog, even alongside Puka Nacua. And we know Stafford likes to funnel his targets. And, you could see Davante Adams get 15 targets a game if Puka Nacua misses time. Now, let's talk about the other people in this offense outside of Davante Adams. Is there anybody that we should be rostering or that's worth maybe taking a swing on in this offense? To me, the answer is really Tyler Higbee. If you're having issues at the tight end position, and maybe you have Brock Bowers, he doesn't play this week, you're looking to stream the position. Tyler Higbee could be an interesting option and could be the guy that you should be targeting, that's going to give us the most production while Puka Nacua is out. 13 personnel usage was pretty significant in terms of the usage going up in week 6, 15.69% compared to their season average, which was 1.82%. And you can attribute that to likely Puka Nacua getting knocked off the field. And they used a lot of 3 tight end sets, right? Now, when it comes to the other tight ends in the room, you have Terrence Ferguson. We saw him flash. It'd be nice for him to maybe get some more usage and utilization as well. And then from an 11 personnel standpoint, they are at 65.38% on the season. That actually bumped up to 76.47% in week number 6. So the other guys to target would be Tutu Atwell, of course, Jordan Whittington. If I was going to target this is how I look at the wide receivers in this room. If I was going to target anybody, Whittington is the safer week by week play, in my opinion. Tutu Atwell is the ceiling play, in my opinion, right? He's a guy that can give you a 70-yard touchdown, right? And pretty much make his whole week on one play. Whittington, not really the same in that regard. But The thing about Jordan Whittington is he steps into more of Puka's role, in my opinion, than Tutu Atwell does. Whittington likes to block. We saw how much they use Puka blocking. Heck, sometimes Puka was lined up as like a tight end blocking. So Whittington fits that mold much better than Tutu Atwell, but Tutu Atwell is going to have the higher ceilings. I think it's worth rostering one of them because this is a great offense. And, you know, if either of them can step up and get consistent volume, right, they will be flex worthy for that time that Puka is out. But to me, I think Tyler Higbee's probably the most likely beneficiary in this offense. And so that would be the guy that I am targeting. But again, he's a tight end, right? I mean, tight ends are volatile week over week, but Tyler Higbee, it is worth noting as well. You know, he did see a decent amount of targets. He saw 4 targets this past week, and I think he almost had more targets this week than his entire season total. So I think Higbee is going to be used. We know they like to use tight ends and not Sean Payton. Sean McVay in his offense, and so Higbee could be a nice beneficiary from that. Let's move on to our next piece of news here and notes is Emeka Egbuka's hamstring injury, right? I mean, the reports are that he is going to miss some time. And Godwin and Bucky Irving already ruled out for next week. And yeah, I mean, Sterling Shepard, 15.45% target rate when on field with Baker Mayfield per Sumer Sports from last year to this year. Tez Johnson, 15.38. So pretty similar in terms of their target rate when on the field. Tez is younger, right? So one would think maybe to roll out with the upside there with Tez Johnson if you need to start one. I think I'm going to go with Shepard, though, on like hey, if I need like a floor play and a flex play, it's Shepard. I mean, we saw Shepard last year. He averaged 5.5 targets the 6 weeks after Chris Godwin went down due to injury last year. The next 6 weeks after that, Johnson feels like a risky upside play where Tez Johnson's going to be the guy where you add him, maybe he doesn't work out and you drop him after a week, right? Shepard is a guy that you're going to probably add him and consider playing. And the same thing, probably drop him, right? But we've seen so many guys on waivers, especially the wide receiver position. We add him, we drop him, we add him, we drop him. It just becomes like you always have 1 or 2 roster spots where you're comfortable churning that spot. And wide receiver has been like that this year, but we're also getting a very, very good offense, right? And so if there's a possibility that it hits, right, you're going to feel pretty good. Sterling Shepard, the one thing about him is he is a guy that Baker goes to where he doesn't have a lot of yards since he's been here with the Bucks, but when he has those games where he catches a good amount of passes, he's giving you like 25 yards, 30 yards, right? So the volume's there, right? Maybe that depth of target can get up a little bit higher. Tez Johnson, I don't think he's going to be a move the chains guy where he's going to be like an underneath player that they're going to use. It's probably going to be more deep shots, but we also have to factor in Mike Evans could be returning very, very soon, as early maybe as this week or next. I mean, he hasn't been ruled out, and I should check that as I'm saying it here. But ultimately, my point is that the value of any of these guys is probably going to get tossed out of the window pretty quickly if Evans is returning. At least Tez Johnson to me, because Evans is still that downfield threat where Shepard can be the guy that works underneath. It is also worth noting Cade Otton, 26% target share this past week, and he ran the most routes on the team. So another guy maybe worth taking a flyer at the tight end position if you are, if you're looking to stream, that could be a guy that you're looking at, especially in this offense that's been really, really good. Next thing we're going to talk about is Chuba Hubbard's opportunity share rest of the season. I think this is really, really important to talk about, right? We talked about Rico Dowdle. We've talked about him in the last 2 weeks. I talked about him on the recap show. I talked about him as one of my favorite starts last week on my start sit video. And ultimately, I mean, Rico, 475 all-purpose yards, 64 fantasy points. He's carved up some bad defenses, but it's fair to say Chuba Hubbard, I don't think would have done what we saw Rico Dowdle do. I don't think Chuba would have been a bell cow like we saw, or he would have had those kinds of numbers. I mean, Hubbard prior to the injury, 61% opportunity share this season, ranks 23rd, right? So 23rd in opportunity share is Chuba Hubbard right now with 61%. In 2024, Chuba Hubbard had 77.9% opportunity share. That was good enough for fourth in the NFL. So he was already losing some touches before the injury. And so it is a concern to me. I think when Chuba Hubbard comes back, I don't think he's going to be the guy that we saw last year, where he's going to give us these really, really big weeks and he's going to have a bell cow role. I don't know how, if you're the Carolina Panthers and you are winning games right now, right? How do you possibly take the guy that's been the best offensive player on the team and put him on the bench? I just don't see that happening. I'm not saying he's going to be the starter, but I definitely think this is going to be closer to a 50-50 split than what we saw before the injury. We do have Monday Night Football, of course, on tap tonight. So it is important. I mean, I love to play DFS. I'm going to have a bunch of lineups out there tonight. If your week is already kind of burned at this point and you have nothing really to look forward to, and you play DFS, it is worth taking a look at our DFS Dominator ahead of Monday Night Football's matchups.
So let's put our hoodie on and let's talk about Player Profiler's DFS Dominator. It has a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Billy and Bradley and Evan and that Player Profiler AI engine to create cash game lineups that certainly have a high floor, but also give you that ceiling. Now, you've probably heard about the most powerful tool of all, our Lineup Genius. We know winning GPPs requires a completely different approach, which is why our Lineup Genius takes you through the process of selecting the quarterbacks in the juiciest matchups. Then it highlights the stacks and runbacks that are available, lets you pick the chalk level, lets you pick the level of correlation with a number of other proprietary settings available to you. Click a button and it generates hundreds of lineups to be imported into FanDuel and DraftKings. And it's just $45 a year, not a week, a year. So go fight fire with a Player Profiler DFS Dominator.
Yeah, and the DFS Dominator is super, super helpful, guys. I always go to it before setting my lineups up. It's really easy to create a bunch of batch lineups, a lot of different settings in there as well, to kind of get you different exposure and help you win some money. So I would definitely check that out. The last thing I would say is, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Chuba Hubbard, guys, is not going to have value rest of the season. That's not really my point. I think it's just notable to say, guys, Rico Dowdle has been the best offensive player the last 2 weeks on this team. And so to me, I just don't think he's going to sit on the bench and Hubbard's going to go back to that bell cow role. We talked about it earlier on, but Hubbard was already seeing a dip into his touches and opportunities from what we saw last year. I mean, we're talking about almost a 20% dip, 16% down from last year to this year. And that was before there was an injury. Now, I think when you look at Rico Dowdle, I would be taking Rico and I would be trying to trade him as much as I could right now, because Rico had great matchups, but he's gonna split time with Chuba too. Like, I don't think you're gonna be comfortable rolling out Rico Dowdle as a starter when Chuba's back. So like, I'm taking Rico and I'm trying to trade him as much as possible. Maybe you're packaging him into something. Maybe you're going to the Hubbard owner, right? But I would get out of this marriage and this relationship right now if I could, because I mean, if there's a chance that Hubbard misses this week, if there's a chance that Hubbard misses this week, people might sit there and say, you know what, like Rico's been great. Like I'm gonna go ahead and I'll pay for him. I'll buy him. And, he gets the Jets, which is a tougher matchup than what he's had the last 2 weeks. It's not, the easiest matchup. It's not the worst matchup, but all I'm saying is I would look to move Rico Dowdle if I could right now. Let's move over to my next takeaway here. And it's another guy, Kamani Vidal, sell high. I am trying to sell Kamani Vidal right now. 43 snaps, 22 routes, 21 touches, 138 yards for Kamani Vidal and a touchdowns. Hassan Haskins, 20 snaps, 11 routes, 7 touches, 23 total yards. there are reports that Hampton's going to miss more than the 4 weeks that were projected for him. And so that's pretty significant, right? I think that's why before this week, we heard that this team was looking at bringing in other competition, whether depth or a starter. Now, I don't think Kamara is going to be moved. Maybe a Kenneth Walker trade, maybe a Breece Hall trade. I don't know, right? We can't really project it. But what I would say is I do worry about Vidal's value slipping due to them bringing somebody in. Not going to take anything away from Kamani Vidal as long as Hampton is gone and they don't bring anybody in. He's going to be a guy that you're looking at as like an RB2, a high end flex play. Like that's how I view him right now. But his value cannot be higher right now than it's going to be rest of the season. We just saw Rico Dowdle carve up the Dolphins. Now we see Kamani Vidal carve up the Dolphins. I mean, pretty much it's just start everybody against the Dolphins. I mean, they give up the most explosive plays out of any team in the NFL right now. So, I would be taking Kamani Vidal and I would be trying to sell him because and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If you have him, I'm not selling you to worry. You pretty much found money in your pocket with Vidal if Hampton's going to miss more time than we already expected, which he's on IR. So he's already going to miss another 3 at minimum. And they're saying he could miss more than that. So I'm trying to move Vidal just off the fact that he's as high as he's possibly going to be, but he did it against a really, really easy matchup. And he gets the Colts on tap in week 7, which is a much tougher matchup. And after he has if he doesn't have a big game like he did last week or doesn't have a good game this week, then you might be looking and people are saying, well, Hampton's coming back soon. The reports sound like they're positive, and you might not get what you could get right now for Vidal. Attack, in my opinion, while it's fresh in people's minds of how he looked. I mean, it's going to be a pretty easy sell. Hampton's going to be gone for 3 weeks, possibly more. They didn't bring anybody else in. 22 routes, 21 touches, over 100 yards. Like, if you have friends and casual people in your leagues, there's a possibility you could make that move. So that's what I'm looking to do with my Vidal shares. I do have some Vidal shares. Moving on to a marriage I'm trying to break away from. Seattle Seahawks, their backfield is an absolute disaster, guys. I mean, it's just, so before the season, I said to everybody, Zach Charbonnet has got to be like my favorite pick beyond the top 100, right? And outside top 100, like Zach Charbonnet is a guy I'm targeting. I don't trust Kenneth Walker's injury history. And there's still a world where one of these guys gets hurt and then it ends up being awesome for fantasy. The problem is Kenneth Walker's a sunk cost right now that you spent the top 50 pick on. Charbonnet is a guy you're sitting on the bench, and it's okay. You can live with it because you didn't invest as much into him. But right now, this is a disaster. I mean, Charbonnet, you're still holding because honestly, outside of the fact that it's not like standalone value, which is what I was hoping for with Charbonnet, but you're seeing them give him more snaps per game. Charbonnet has 31 snaps per game. Kenneth Walker has 24, and Charbonnet has looked bad. I mean, he has looked bad, and this team, for some reason, is committed to him, right? And that's not a surprise to me before the season. I thought that they liked Charbonnet before the season, and I thought it was going to be closer to a 50-50 split, but the production has been so bad with Charbonnet, and they have stuck by him, and it's been pretty surprising. This past week, Kenneth Walker, 19 snaps, 8 routes, 11 touches, 37 yards. Zach Charbonnet, 33 snaps, 15 routes, 13 touches, 37 yards. Walker on the year, 15 red zone rushes, 1 goal line rush. Charbonnet, 19 red zone rushes, 3 goal line rushes. It's overall, Walker has been the more efficient, explosive runner who's, he's getting more work when they are ahead usually. That's per Sumer Sports. But I mean, right now, Charbonnet has been used in a lot of, third down and goal line. And that's where a lot of the money is being made right now in fantasy football is the goal line. And it's the third down passing work, especially if you're in a split backfield like this one. So that's kind of been a little bit frustrating. This is a marriage that if I have Kenneth Walker, I really want to get out of this marriage right now. And you're just hoping that maybe he gets traded. If I have Zach Charbonnet, I'm probably not moving him. I'm not dropping him because this coaching staff really likes him clearly. And even if he's not producing, you didn't spend a lot on him. And Kenneth Walker, I mean, he's had an injury history. So, he misses time. I don't know if they go to a split role or if they just give Charbonnet the majority of the work. So, this is a relationship I really, really do not want to be in the middle of right now. If I am an owner of either of these guys, I feel much better about Charbonnet than I do Walker right now. But overall, I mean, absolute headache and just an absolute disaster for fantasy right now. Now, I do want to talk about Flowers by week by. I think Zay Flowers for me is the guy I am targeting this week as my favorite buy of the week. They are on a bye week. So, you have some fantasy managers that might own Zay Flowers, might be a little bit frustrated about the Lamar Jackson situation. Flowers was really good to start the year, and then he kind of phased down. And you might have some teams that need some wins, and they may need to move off of Flowers. And maybe they're kind of thinking about Zay Flowers of the old, where it wasn't this guy that was running hot to start the year. He was kind of inconsistent in his career prior to this. And so maybe time has worn off enough from the beginning of the year where maybe people are sitting and saying, I need a win. He's on a bye. And ultimately, they don't remember that he was good and maybe they're not banking on that, him to return to that. I like Zay Flowers. Lamar is going to very likely be back after this bye week. Ravens defense is freaking terrible. I mean, they're going to be in a lot of shootouts, a lot of high throwing games. They're going to throw the football. They have Derrick Henry. I expect them to lean on Derrick Henry, of course. But I mean, even his workload is not what we've seen in recent years. They haven't really leaned on him as much. And even with Lamar gone, they did lean on him this week more, but you would expect them to have leaned on him even heavier than what we've seen so far. Zay Flowers was wide receiver 5 in PPR through the first 2 weeks of fantasy. He was wide receiver 16 through 4 weeks before Lamar Jackson got hurt. And then, just one game below 10 PPR points this year. He's got really, really good plus matchups from weeks 13 to 17. So I like that back end of year schedule for him. Especially in like 3 wide receiver leagues. If you can get this guy as like your 3rd wide receiver, possibly, it's very, very possible that you could do that depending on your roster construction. Zay Flowers is a guy that I'm targeting. I'll put my stamp on it. I did talk about BTJ as a target and we talked about Lad too, but BTJ more in weeks past. We'll talk about BTJ shortly, but these are the kinds of guys I'm trying to take shots on. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Number 7, and it's Joe Flacco, our savior. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everybody benefited from Joe Flacco being back, but the wide receivers did. Jamar Chase, 10 receptions, second most he's had this year, and the most with a quarterback not named Joe Burrow. 25.1 PPR points. Jamar's been awesome the last 2 weeks. I get it. Flacco wasn't the quarterback last week, but Jamar Chase is still Jamar Chase. We knew this. T. Higgins saw his best game with 5 receptions, 8 total targets. It only led to 11.2 fantasy points, but still an encouraging sign for T. Higgins as well. You kind of feel a little bit better that Flacco's there right now. Chase Brown, this one's getting really hard to gauge. I want to be in on buying Chase Brown right now, but I also have some concerns about the snap share. 53 and 54% snap share the last 2 weeks for Chase Brown. It's tough. 60% running back rush share against the Packers, which was the second lowest of his season. His 5.0 target share was the lowest of the season. And that stat is from JJ Zacharyson. Want to make sure I give him some credit. So, I mean, if you look at those, you might sit there and say, why would I want Chase Brown? you're probably going to be able to get Chase Brown for pretty cheap right now. And I look at Chase Brown's end of year schedule. He gets Baltimore twice, he gets Buffalo, he gets Miami, and he gets Arizona in his final 5 games of the year. And I'm not going out there and spending a lot for Chase Brown right now, guys, but I think Chase Brown, if you can get him at a discount right now, I would. People are probably a little disgruntled about his showing against the Packers, but Packers defense has been really good against running backs, and he only had 2 targets on 6 fantasy points against them. There's a good chance you could probably, that the guy that had him probably saw Joe Flacco and said, "Oh, perfect, like Chase Brown, he's going to get a bump up just like everybody else." And when he didn't, guys are probably sitting here saying, "Shoot, man, like I'm so sick of this guy. Like I put him in my lineup. I was expecting the Packers to be leading and him to catch a bunch of dump off garbage time passes." Like that's probably what people were expecting. That's what I thought was going to happen. It didn't. So I think Chase Brown, if you can get him for cheap, I would target him, especially with all the running back injuries we've had. I still think he's a guy I would be looking at to target. And let's also keep in mind, Joe Burrow could still come back. If Flacco can keep this team afloat, that great schedule that we're talking about for Chase Brown, very good chance Joe Burrow is there for a couple of those games at the end. So keep that in mind as well. Number 8, and I did talk about it. BTJ Breakout. We finally saw the breakout game for BTJ. The volume has been there, guys. I mean, the volume has been there. The connection, he's had some ups and downs with, with Trevor Lawrence, but the volume's been there for BTJ. That's why we talked about him as a buy low. He had the best game of his season this week. 10 targets, 8 receptions, 90 yards and a touchdown, 23 fantasy points. And look, he played a Seattle defense that's banged up in the secondary, but he still showed up. You got to give him credit, right? And that connection is starting to look like it's clicking between him and Trevor Lawrence, which is really what we wanted to see. That is the most important thing for me, is the connection starting to click. 14.42 yards per route run this year for BTJ. That is a very, very strong number. 8 targets per game this season, a 23% target share. I look at BTJ as a middle to like, he's a top 20 receiver rest of the season for me. I look at BTJ as a top 20 receiver rest of the season. It doesn't matter that his schedule is kind of iffy. I still like him rest of the season with that volume. I don't expect the volume to go anywhere. I do expect the Jaguars defense to regress a little bit. They have been very opportunistic against some bad matchups where they've, taken the ball away a ton. And so I think there's a good chance that maybe that defense starts to let up a little bit more and they have to throw the ball a little bit more too. So all that to say, it's good to see BTJ with the breakout. I did buy him a couple of spots. I hope if you listened to the show, you did as well. We got 2 more here, guys. Then I'm going to do a mailbag in the comments like I do every time we do these shows. Next one here is Downs heating up. Josh Downs, average route share over the last 3 weeks, 57%, weeks 4 to 6, 68%. This is another JJ Zacharyson stat. He's now seen targets of 27% and 23% over his last 2 games. One thing to note about Josh Downs is the routes run did not increase with no AD Mitchell. The concerning thing for Downs is Alec Pierce is still the guy on 2 wide receiver sets. He saw 81% of the snaps last week. And, he's been missing for a couple of games. Now that he's back, I'd still have a little bit of concerns for Downs. I do have him in a couple of deep leagues where I had to play him this week, and it ended up turning out really good for me. But 14th in target rate. I mean, I don't know. It's really hard to, you want sticky stats. You want things that you think like if someone throws out, throws out like touchdowns, right? That's not a sticky stat, right? There's a lot of regression or positive regression when it comes to touchdowns. It's very hard year over year. When it comes to, target rate, I mean, if Josh Downs is running, 50% routes, but he's getting targeted at 14th in the NFL in terms of target rate, that's similar to what we look at with Stephon Diggs, who's seeing like 50% route share and he's still making the most of it because he's getting targeted a ton, right? So Josh Downs could still be okay. I'm not. I need to see one more week, man. You guys know I love Josh Downs. I just need one more week to really buy back in, but he's starting to heat up a little bit. So I wanted to make sure I noted that. The AD Mitchell stuff, I don't think that's getting resolved anytime soon. He seems like he's in the doghouse, and that seems like a disaster. So it's good to see Josh Downs perform and have some good quarterback play. Last thing we'll talk about is Ladd McConkey's bounce back. We've talked about Ladd McConkey on the show. Ladd McConkey back-to-back weeks with a touchdown, 7 catches, 100 yards, and 9 targets. Of course, we have to make sure we note no Quentin Johnson in this matchup, and he also played against the Dolphins. Dolphins seem like a get-right game for a lot of people in terms of their defense, though. And, Ladd McConkey makes a really big catch to pretty much seal the game for them, right? I mean, they're going down, they're losing. He makes a catch, he makes a guy miss, he gets upfield, gets positive yards. I think he gets like 20 yards on the catch, and he gets up and screaming, a lot of emotion. And I watched that play and seeing him get up and just yell after the play, it just made me feel like Ladd was kind of just like screw you to everybody right now. Everybody keeps talking about him, and it's QJ, it's Keenan Allen. Like everybody is throwing shade at Ladd this year because he hasn't been, he was slumping to start the year. The targets have been there though for Ladd. And it's worth noting that Keenan Allen has not been great the last couple of weeks, 8.7 fantasy points per game. And his target share has gone down. Ladd is playing 4+ matchups over the next 5 weeks. That is important to note, right? He's got a good schedule going forward. I don't know how long this Quentin Johnson injury is going to last. So that's going to be something to monitor. But we look at Ladd McConkey, like even though QJ stood out, like Ladd is running the most routes on this team, right? Even if he wasn't performing like Keenan and QJ, Keenan, not that he's going to fade off completely. He's still going to be good, right? He's still going to be good. But I think the targets have been there. It's just about the connection. It took time to get that rhythm, right? He wasn't getting those easy passes, but we're starting to see it for Ladd, and it's really, really encouraging that he had back-to-back weeks with a touchdown. This was his best week of the year. And I mean, he's getting a lot of targets. And he only had one game where he had less than 6 targets in a game this year. Chargers, last thing I'll say on this, and then we'll get to the mailbag, is Chargers are second in pass rate over expected. So they are throwing the ball. We've talked about this. They are throwing the ball when the analytics are telling you to run the football. They're throwing the football in those situations at the second highest rate over anybody in the NFL. So and it's also worth noting, no Hampton there. While Vidal looked good, Vidal's got a tough matchup against the Colts next week. Ladd could have another really good game against this Colts secondary that, lost some guys pregame. There was the whole concussion thing before the game started, which was crazy. One of their corners ran into a tight end in pregame warmups and got a concussion and didn't play. So, I think with Vidal, I don't think he's going to run hot as all season long, and I think it should help Ladd. I think they're going to continue to throw the football, even with the offensive line is just not built right now with the injuries to sustain, getting enough push to run the football. And they have a below average running back right now in Kamani Vidal. Great. He looked awesome. I've got him on a bunch of taxi squads and some deep dynasty stashes from last year because I was excited for him last year. And I'm not taking anything away from the guy, but I mean, he's below average running back in the NFL. That's it. That's it. Right. And this team likes to throw the football, and they have shown us that all season long. I don't expect that to change. Ladd McConkey, really, really, really awesome. If you held him, good for you. I'm expecting good weeks ahead for Ladd to continue. So that's going to do it for the top 10 takeaways. If you are here, make sure you give us a thumbs up on the show. Make sure you subscribe to Player Profiler if you have not already. You can follow me on X at Supernova38 with 2 R's. I'm going to get to some mailbag questions. If there's anything going on in the chat right now, I will go ahead and check it out. And let's see what we got. Ban Soul said, should I try to trade Dowdle high right now or see how things go when Chuba returns? I would sell Dowdle. I like Dowdle. He's been great for us right now. I would sell Dowdle if you can get something really good for him. I wouldn't give him away for nothing, though. It has to be a good return. I'm not just giving him away for free. But because I'm not just assuming he's going to turn into nothing when Chuba comes back. But yeah, that's how I would look at it. Snail said Fairbairn or Eddie Pinheiro week 7 for kickers. I will say that the defense and kickers video did just come out this week on Player Profiler. Chev and Jeremiah just dropped that. I think Eddie Pinheiro was on that, but I'd have to double check. But Pinheiro was awesome, tied for first on the week last week for kickers and fantasy points. So worth taking a look at their video as it did just drop yesterday. So take a look there. Index Suspicion, see in the chat. Appreciate it, man. Albert's here in the chat. Guy said, is Debo playing tonight or am I starting stupid Joshua Palmer? Debo's playing. He's been way too good to put on your bench for Josh Palmer. So you're definitely starting Debo. Daniel said, Debo or Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, full PPR, need 20 points to win. I also have the Buffalo kicker. I mean, I would go with Debo. This is a really, really nice matchup for him. I think it's a good matchup for both guys. I guess if you want to play it safe, like you go with Ja'Cory, but like you need 20 points with the kicker and one of these guys. I would go with Debo. He's just been too good. If he's playing tonight, he's going to be used. Still no Terry McLaurin. They don't have enough consistent guys on this offense to go to outside of Debo. So I would go with Debo. Let's see. What else? Jamie said dropping Carter for Vidal, backup roulette. Yeah, Michael Carter, a little concerning. Bam Knight had more touches. More snaps this week, and he scored a touchdown. I would drop Michael Carter for Vidal, just in a better offense. And ultimately, here's the thing. I don't think Michael Carter gets competition added to his room, but I do think he has better competition around him. Not that much better. Vidal, I worry, has competition around him, but at the same time, I'd still rather Vidal. He has less competition around him, but I worry that they're going to bring in competition around him and suppress his value. But I would still prefer Vidal. Let's see. And I think both guys are involved still. R said, would you play Downs next week, though? So Downs going up against the Chargers, I think he's worth a flex play. I think he's worth probably top 36 ranking, which I think top 36 because I think 2 wide receivers is top 24, and then another 12 is top 36. And so when I think about top 36 play, I think of, a flex play, right? Like a top flex play. Downs could certainly be a top flex play. But I think that's going to do it for us, guys. If you have watched, if you came in late, go back to the beginning. We dropped a ton of awesome information. As always, I have appreciated everybody that's showing up to these shows. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. If you have a question that did not get answered, or you're watching the replay on this and you'd like to ask a question, just comment on the video. If you're live, comment when it closes out. And if you're watching the recording, just comment under the video. I will come back in and I will answer those questions for you. And until next time, good luck in your matchups tonight, and I'll see you then.